I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dolly, can you do roll call, please?
Supervisor Flaherty.
Here.
Councilman Abbott.
Here.
Councilwoman Cataldi.
Present.
Councilman Cahill.
Here.
Councilwoman Wynn.
Here.
Town Attorney Janeski.
Present.
Well, our first item up tonight is the public hearing on the Town of Webster's 2024 preliminary budget. And I will say for everybody that's in the room tonight and for anybody watching live on cable or Facebook Live or YouTube, Paul Adams, does this culminate a 5 to 6 month process?
About a 5-month process, 5.5,
Yeah.
early May.
I will say before we open the public hearing, and I think there are some people here tonight that do want to speak, I just want to say that well, this was the fourth budget that I've been involved in since I've been supervisor, and one of the things that really made this year so interesting, at least selfishly for me, was that it incorporated some of the things that Paul Adams, as our finance director, and Brayton Connard, as our human resources director, have implemented in the last couple of years. Most notably, Paul came back a couple of years ago from an Association of Towns conference and introduced to the town board a fund balance policy. After we discerned it and made some tweaks, I think we adopted it 2 years ago, Paul?
Mm-hmm. About 2 years ago.
Along those same lines, he came back, I think, last year and said we should have a debt management policy, and we discerned it and tweaked it, and I think we recently...
That was recent, and
Yep.
that past couple of 2-3 months.
Yep. And then a combination of Paul and Brayton, we took, I guess we're gluttons for punishment, but after going through two union negotiations earlier, or late 2022 and first couple months of 2023, the blue collar and the white collar unions, Brayton and Paul said, you know, there's some career ladder steps, I'll call it, that we're woefully missing on our department heads, that we could maybe codify that better, and that just was done, I think, a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that because those three components really guided this board and the department heads for that, you know, that were so instrumental in building this budget, this preliminary budget. And the thing that I like about those items, I guess being an accountant by trade, is that they're going to give the town board and future department heads and finance directors, after we're all gone, not from the face of the earth, but gone hopefully from just the positions we're in, guide rails on building a budget. So they're not sitting there, you know, in future boards saying, well, how much money should we have in savings for the town, you know? Kind of one of these things. This is just good practice. I think the state comptroller loves this stuff, and it actually has...
They do, it's highly recommended.
Yes. So, and it really helped us this year, and I think you'll see as you look at this budget, and I did, well, Paul did some handouts tonight that show really the summary of the budget. I'm going to hand the baton off to Paul at this point. Yeah.
All right, Tom. I could just hit a few highlights. I prepared some notes. As you see, the year-to-year gross expenses in the budget are actually up quite a bit. They're up about $3.5 million, and there's several reasons for that in various categories. Employee compensation is up about $700,000 overall. That includes COLA increases for 2023 and 2024. At the time that we approved the 23 budget, the white-collar union agreement was not settled at that point. I believe it didn't settle until May of 23. So in the 23 budget, there was no COLA put in. There were some funds put away in contingency, but it was not in the line items. So it shows as an extra bigger jump in the compensation lines. And also there were the usual step increases, and the department heads were put on a grade step schedule for the first time. Contractual expenses, which are supplies and commodities that the town purchases. There were several items that were up quite a bit. Gas and electric utility costs were up about $88,000. Gasoline and diesel fuel were up about $30,000. Insurance premiums, road improvements, wastewater treatment chemicals were also up quite a bit. So that drove those costs. But the largest driver of the cost increase is debt service costs. In August, the town actually closed on a ban issue to fund the various capital projects they have going on around town. We have the wastewater treatment plant Phase 2 project, we have the Sandbar Park, and we have the highway building. So we actually borrowed $51,190,000 in August. So for the '24 budget, we're including the initial debt service payments on those amounts. But we actually did pretty well with the band sale. We came in with a net interest rate of about 3.5%, which is very, very good in this environment. They offered us, it was Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo offered us a band premium of about $766,000, which will be actually recognized as revenue to offset the interest expense cost in 2024. So overall, we thought we did pretty well in that category. The next big item is sales tax. I think back in 2020, New York State passed some legislation that allowed them to collect pretty much all sales tax on internet sales, which prior to that were kind of sneaking through as untaxed items. So since 2020, we've seen our sales tax revenue rise considerably. So we saw it fit to right-size the budget on the sales tax line for 2024. So we actually increased sales tax to $6.7 million. Comparably, it was $4.8 million in 2023. So you've got about a $1.9 million jump just on that one line item. When you think of a government, you think of most of the revenue coming from taxes. We actually have substantial non-tax revenue. The non-tax revenue in the '24 budget is about $13.5 million. It was about 11.6 in the prior year. Biggest component of that jump is the sales tax. As far as the tax rates go, for a village property, they pay the tax based on the town's two townwide funds, general and highway townwide funds. And if you live outside the village, you pay based on the needs of the four main operating funds of the town. But this year, we were able to actually decrease the tax levy in the part-town funds to zero using sales tax money. That actually allowed us to use sales tax in the townwide funds, which actually helps offset some of the debt service costs for the highway garage building project. I'm probably losing everybody, but call me if you have any questions. It's getting pretty deep. But anyway, so the tax rate ended up the same for both the village property and a property outside the village at $506 per thousand. The sewer rent, on the other hand, went up substantially. A lot of that's driven by the debt service from the capital project. The sewer rent year to year is going up about $67 per unit. But when you combine them, if you take an average house, which in our town, I think the average assessed value is $177,000. Donna can confirm that. If you look at that tax bill for that particular house, if they're on the sewer system, they'll pay about $1,195. And for 2023, it would have been $1,170. So overall, they're up about $25, which is about 2.1%. So we were able to stay under the tax cap. We used more fund balance than we had used in '23, We actually are appropriating about $3.5 million of fund balance to stabilize the rate. In '23, we did about $2.4 million. So most of those appropriations are actually coming from operating funds. There's $400,000 from the sewer fund and about $890,000 from the various other funds and special districts. So overall, I think we're definitely fiscally sound. We're trying to plan long-term rather than looking, as Tom says, in a silo in a one-year budget. We're trying to look further out, like a 5-year plan, to try to plan ahead and to keep the tax rate stable. And I think it's paying off. It's good to have that look out into the future. So overall, I'd like to thank everybody for their help in putting the budget together. Once again, the department heads were key. We had many meetings, and I think we put together a good package.
Well, Paul, with that being said, so between the two of us, pretty long preface, but it is time to
was thorough.
open the public hearing. And the sign-ins were two gentlemen. Richard Dowling, you are first if you want to speak at the public hearing.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
You're having trouble hearing me?
I don't have good hearing to begin
Okay.
with. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
All right.
I know that what I'm going to say for the next, give me 5 minutes, is not going to change because what I'm going to be talking about is written in stone at this point. My next door neighbor moved in. Am I too loud?
Sir, can you just back up a little
I'm too
bit?
loud?
Too close to Mike.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
My next door neighbor moved in May of this year.
perfect.
And I wanted to hit it off really good with them. I was doing them favors, helping them with their pool, setting it up, putting their cover on, taking it off for their solar cover, and we were getting along just fine. Then they told me that they wanted to put a fence in. And I said, well, that's your prerogative. It's your property. You can do what you want. Well, they said, but don't worry, we're not going to put it on your side because you have a fence for your garden, and you have a shed, and you have a raspberry bush and a blueberry patch. So we probably won't put one on your side. I said, well, that's great, but we're going to put it around the rest of the backyard. Well, little did I know, I was not told that they started putting in a privacy fence last week. 6 foot tall. And what upset me is they put it on the property line. They did not set it back at all. And I thought that that's illegal. So I came to the town hall last week and I wanted to know what is the ruling on a privacy fence. Can you put it on the lot line? Because I was told that it was a 10-foot minimum distance, which it was, but it isn't anymore. Your town changed the law for a privacy 6-foot fence from 10 feet to 0. You can now put a privacy 6-foot fence on the property line, and that's exactly what they've done. And what bothers me the most is that we were built, the house that I'm living in was built in the 50s, and the house next door that they bought was built in the 50s. There isn't much room between the two rooms like the two houses like there are today. This privacy fence is right on top of me. And I found out that the reason you changed it is because you took a survey around the county of Monroe to see what other districts were doing. But that included a lot of open space property. I do not have that luxury. My house is very close to their house. And now my blueberry patch and my roseberry and my raspberry patch will no longer get morning sun because this thing blocks the sun all morning. I had a very good crop every year, 50, 60, 70 pounds of blueberries, 20, 30, 40 pounds of raspberries. I have a feeling I'm not going to see that anymore. So my consideration here, and the reason I'm here, and I'm hoping that this town is going to reconsider that minimum space for a privacy fence. I can understand if you have a lot of room and you have a big piece of property, that you do have the variance that you could allow up to a 10-foot. But not in my situation. It's right on top of me. So that's what I want to say. I'm hoping that you can reconsider. It's not going to change my situation, but reconsider that distance for a privacy. 6-foot fence, it's an eyesore. I don't think any of you would want one of these things next to your property. And of course, now I can't even see my neighbors. This fence is taller than me. Is my 5 minutes up?
No?
No, I thought I'd gone over.
No, you got about a minute and a half left.
I know you're not going to respond to what I'm saying, but please reconsider. 6-foot fence is huge, and especially when the homes aren't that far apart. And they put this privacy fence all around their backyard. It looks like a stockade. I mean, and they did it because they wanted to have privacy. Well, why didn't they move to an area where there's more room? They could have all the privacy they want. Well, that's all I have to say. Okay. I'm upset over this, very upset, and I know nothing's going to be done. I have pictures if you want to see what this fence looks like next to my blueberry bushes and my raspberry bushes. Do any of you want to see these pictures? Or am I just wasting time?
Sure. Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm out of here.
Oh,
Or does anyone have any questions?
I do have a question, actually, Richard.
I can't hear you.
I do have a question. That's the only time people can't hear me, because I got a pretty loud voice. But all right, sorry for everybody else. Have you asked your neighbors why they put this up on your side?
They didn't put it up on my side. It's on the property line, which is legal.
I'm sorry. Why did they put this up on your side? Have you asked them, hey,
I can't hear you.
have you asked your neighbors, hey, this is
I haven't talked to them since this happened.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, well, and shame on me, because there's 2 opportunities tonight for people to take the podium. The public hearing, which we're in right now for the budget, and then when that public hearing is over, we have an open to the floor, each speaker allowed 5 minutes. I think Mr. Dowling just took the open to the floor section, and that's fine. Now, Richard Walter, are you public hearing or are you open to the floor?
I'm going to not speak tonight until I do a little more research.
That is your prerogative. Okay. Is there anybody else in the room that wants to speak at the public hearing portion about the 2024 preliminary budget? Okay, then I am going to close the public hearing. And the only thing I would say before we move on is that, as I said at the beginning, it's a 6-month process, 5 to 6 months. We've been in this boardroom and talked about this budget development for 6 months. Citizens who are interested could be watching all along. 2 weeks ago, if you got the Webster Today at your house, which you should have if you live in Webster, 16 pages of line item by line item on it. And we haven't gotten many questions about the budget. And I'd like to think, the optimist in me thinks it's because it was put together very well. Because I know people pay attention to this, Paul.
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think I know the answer to this. The next item on our agenda is the open to the floor, each speaker allowed for 5 minutes. I don't want to assume anything. I don't think anybody here tonight is taking the podium for the open to the floor. I kind of knew that. Okay. Then next up is the board meeting 2 weeks ago, October 5th, the minutes. I reviewed them, and I would make a motion that we approve those minutes.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye?
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi? Aye. Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Bill? You? No?
Yep.
Okay.
I reviewed the bills and submitted by the Director of Finance, find them in order, and recommend that we pay them.
Second.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. And I reviewed the prepaid warrants as submitted by Paul Adams, our Director of Finance, and make a motion we approve those.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye?
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
And I also reviewed the purchase orders as submitted by Paul Adams, the Director of Finance, and make a motion that we approve those.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye?
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Paul, you want to just give a brief explanation of the next two?
Yeah, I'll give you a few comments. We have some budget transfers and amendments to the 2023 budget, the year that we are in. It includes a fairly large transfer within the police department. They've been short on staff, so they've actually had some increased overtime costs, so we're transferring some money from the officer salary line. The amendments have to do with our recreation. The recreation programs have been really going gangbusters. They've brought in an incredible amount of revenue, and with the revenue, expense also goes up, so we're actually just expanding the budget to reflect the increased expenses in budget and revenue. CHIPS road materials. Pat, I think, spent about $308,000 on CHIPS road materials this year. The budget was $100,000. CHIPS is fully reimbursable, so we're just expanding the budget to account for the additional expense and the additional revenue. And the last amendment has to do with the Parkland Trust Fund and the renovation of the pickleball courts over at the Recreation Center. We're just expanding the Parkland Trust budget by about $50,000 to cover the remaining costs of the pickleball project. So,
Thanks, Paul. Any comments, questions by the board? I know that, I think we got those out to the board members yesterday or Tuesday
yeah.
for their reading pleasure.
Mhm.
It's one way instead of counting sheep at night, right? Well, I make a motion to approve the 2023 budget transfers as submitted by Paul Adams, Director of Finance.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye?
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
And I make a motion to approve the 2023 budget amendments as presented by Paul Adams, the Director of Finance.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye?
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
This next resolution, we had it on here, but it was always kind of a, will we approve the 2024 budget tonight? We kind of wanted to have it there, possibly table it if we had 50 people come in and comment and question about a lot of the budget items. We didn't have that. We even, leading up the last 2 weeks, we had minimal, like I said before, emails and calls into our website, into the supervisor's office, the finance department, so. I'm comfortable making this motion, so I am going to make a motion to adopt the Town of Webster 2024 final budget.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye?
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
I would prefer we tabled it, but since it's already a resolution,
You can say no, Bill.
yeah, I just prefer we tabled it, but, so
Okay,
I would vote no.
okay.
Councilman Cahill,
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn.
Aye.
All right, and because it did not, well, a 4-to-1 is fine. We would need a supermajority, which that is a supermajority, if we went over the 2% cap. This wasn't under, so the budget is adopted. The next resolution is really an offshoot of the budget, something that we've been working on the last 3 years, 4 years really. I found it odd when I became supervisor that about 2 months into being supervisor, somebody came in 5 minutes before the meeting and said, we need to adopt the 2020 fee schedule. And I'm like, well, we're 2 months into 2020. How did that not get done during budget time? That's a financial thing. Just kind of one of those things that slipped through the cracks, right, Paul, that never
Right.
really, so we've been working on with the department heads the last few years. We need to get a policy, procedure, custom, whatever, where the same time we approve the budget, we're approving the fee schedule, the revenue, for like the rec center, for the parks, all that stuff, for DPW department. I don't know how else you could build a budget without having those fees that are what kind of builds your budget. So, any questions on that before I make a motion on this? Because I think this is the first time we've done it the same day. Is it not, Paul?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no comments.
I make a motion to adopt the 2024 Town of Webster fee schedule and the 2024 Webster Parks and Recreation Center lodge facility and field rates as presented.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty,
Aye?
Councilwoman Wynn,
Aye.
Councilman Cahill,
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi,
Aye.
Councilman Abbott.
Aye.
I think this is you, Pat, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next resolution to authorize the supervisor to sign an intermunicipal agreement with Monroe County for snow and ice. That's our contract with Monroe County for providing snow and ice services on their roads. We usually do a renewal most years, and then every 3 years they rewrite the contract, reassess. This year there's actually quite a bit of adjustment, which is not typical because of the cost of fuel, equipment, all that stuff going up. There's actually a healthy increase in this contract. So it was very good working with Monroe County DOT and other townships to iron out all the details of this plan and make some adjustments with it. This particular service generates about $400,000 a year in revenue into the highway department, to the town, for providing services on Monroe County highways. In Webster, there's about 108 lane miles of Monroe County DOT roads, in addition to the state roads and all the town roads that we have. So it's the snow and ice, the plowing and salting services for the Monroe County roads. And the agreement's in place, done a lot of work with it. It's I think, improved and in good shape. So looking to get it signed so that we can submit the vouchers for that revenue.
Where's the amount? Where's the amount?
It's different for each town. So it's a municipal agreement that goes to all the townships, and then each town is slightly different. So it's not a set amount. We submit against our efforts each year based on our annual rates for labor and equipment vary a little bit. It speaks to the percentages per truck. So they have a rate schedule that's associated with all the equipment and labor that we use that generates the final exact number. I just pulled the sum I mentioned off of our 2023 budget for labor and equipment.
Are there any other questions? Then I would move to authorize the supervisor to sign an intermunicipal agreement with Monroe County for snow and ice control services.
Second.
Councilwoman Cataldi,
Aye.
Councilman Cahill,
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn,
Aye.
Councilman Abbott,
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty.
Aye. Pat, have at it.
Right, so the next one is a resolution to authorize me to place stop signs. We have a location in town, it's a four-way intersection through coordination with the police department and my department in assessing the situation there. We feel there's some significant confusion as to who has the right-of-way at that intersection, located on Birch Lane. So the level of severity is significant enough that we're proposing to add 2 new stop signs to clarify which directions need to stop and which ones have the right-of-way.
Any questions? No? So that I make a motion to consent to the placement of traffic control devices, stop signs, by the Webster Superintendent of Highways pursuant to Chapter 320 of the Webster Town Code. Location 1 will be the northbound Circle Lane at Birch Lane, and location 2 will be the southbound Shorewood Drive at Birch Lane.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye?
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill? Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Before we move on, just on the roads in town, I got to ask this question because we're going to be losing a very valuable resource on the board in 2 months when Councilman Abbott retires. So just today, I know that Pat, you were in on this, so was Chief Kohlmeyer. It's been going around, I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, but our town road speed limit is, in our code, is 30 miles per hour. But there are several roads in town that have lower speed limits, 25 or 20. And we found out a couple months ago, there's a list of these roads that town boards of the past, 15, 20, 25 years ago, did resolutions individually on these roads to bring the speed limit down. Bill, I don't know if you were on the board back then, but you were on the planning board. We have not found what was the supporting documentation that the town board looked at to then make that resolution? Was it, do you remember?
In many cases, it was traffic counts that were provided by the police department.
Okay. So you remember if it was the police department that initiated those, or if it was citizens that did a petition on that street?
It was citizens that came in and complained enough and petitioned that the town asked the police department to put out their control device and get some idea of what the speeds were that we were seeing, and that's kind of how we based that. I'm not sure if Dennis can remember that or not, but
I don't specifically remember that, no, but I might not have been in a position to.
Okay. We've been on a 4-year journey to try to document policies and procedures and have less verbal things. We just cannot figure out back 15 to 25 years ago what was the process. We just can see the resolutions that were passed for them. But we have no supporting documentation in our records of what it was. And I say again, the accountant in me, that doesn't make me happy. So we were hoping to find what the policy and procedure was so we could mimic it, because there's people that are pinging us right now on the same thing, right, Pat? And we're like, I don't want to recreate the wheel. How did the town do it in the past? And it looks like we might be recreating the wheel. So, thanks, Bill.
you're welcome.
All right. Is my friend Chris still here?
I think he had to leave.
I don't blame him. He's a Saints fan. He wanted to get home to see his team play tonight. Does the board have any questions about this next resolution about the 5-year lease on the recreation center equipment, the cardio equipment with C&G Fitness?
No, I don't.
This is something we do on a 3 or 4 year basis.
Yeah.
And the term is up, and that's why this is in front of us now, to start the new term on the lease of equipment.
We looked at comparable pricing too. This is the lowest price
Yeah.
from what we looked at.
Your department, Bill, you want to?
I would move
let
that
it rip?
we authorize the supervisor to sign the 5-year lease service agreement beginning in 2024 with G&G Fitness for cardio equipment for Webster Park and Recreation Fitness Center.
Second.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye?
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. Well, I've never been so nervous at a board meeting that, my captain of the hockey team when I was in high school, one of my mentors is the next one. Steve, do you want to take the podium and explain this one? Because I think it's kind of a slam dunk because of the letter we have, right? But, go ahead, Steve.
Good evening. I'm requesting approval and a license agreement to install a 100-foot, 6 feet high, 8-inch, 8-foot wide vinyl semi-private, 3-inch picket fence along my backside of the property with an 8-foot swing gate / access point on the sanitary sewer easement. I have a 15-foot storm drainage easement creek on one side of my property and a 15-foot sanitary sewer easement on the other side. I've attached a Highway Department letter of support from Patrick Stevens, Superintendent of Highways, as well as an email support from Sewer Department sent by Art Patrone, Deputy Commissioner of Public Works, to Joshua Artuso, Director of Community Development. The fence will be installed within the requirements of the Town Code 350-79 fences and will include an 8-foot wide opening gate access to be installed on the side encroaches the sanitary easement per Art Perone's request. I've attached a town application form, an easement encroachment, a site plan, a highway department letter of support, a sewer department letter of support, a short environmental assistance form, a non-collusion disclosure pursuant to section 225-111 of the Webster zoning ordinance. Disclosure of the intent to request tax incentives, abatements, and exceptions. Thank you.
Wow. That was the most thorough explanation of a request for a license agreement that I've been involved in. Does anybody have any questions on the board?
No.
No, just for confirmation, however, this was number
Yeah.
12, so just, there was some confusion at this end as to which one we were looking at.
Yeah, I apologize.
No, that's
I did
okay.
go in the wrong order. I saw license agreement on 11, and I just assumed, and
Yep.
actually, you guys, I'm sorry I had you go second. If you're that detailed when you get up there, I will throw my ears out.
You wish you'd gone first, right?
Well, I think his career had a lot to do with that, details, right? Well, I make a motion to, for a license agreement to allow a fence within a drainage and sanitary sewer easement at 733 Eastwood Circle, tax ID number 079.17-1-71.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye?
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Steve?
Okay, Mr. Rice.
Town Attorney Genesi becomes your best friend now.
Thank you.
And it'll be ditto for you guys that So, I really apologize to Cody and Catherine. I should have looked closer at the supporting documentation. But Cody and Catherine have an application here for a license agreement to allow a fence within a drainage district drainage easement at 1081 Fawnwood Drive. And I think there is support letters from Pat, correct? So, like I said, don't feel as if you have to give the same details Mr. Rice did, but
I'm just a little confused, Mr. Supervisor. I've got Joan Cottrell and Cody Cottrell own the property.
Yes, so Cody, he just had dental surgery, so I'm speaking. Cody's my boyfriend, and he co-owns the home with his mother, and so I'm, in the next
Okay.
few months, I'll be moving
So
in.
they're the applicants. Joan and Cody are the applicants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I filled out all the
Fine.
paperwork.
That's
and-
fine. That explains it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting us speak and seeing our permit application. My name's Catherine Dubreck. I'm near future resident. This is Cody Cottrell. He's a current resident and partial property owner. And we're seeking your approval for the easement encroachment permit to allow us to move forward with a proposal to construct a 6-foot tall, 85-foot long cedar wooden dog ear styled privacy fence at 1081 Fawnwood. This proposed fence would run the full length of the back property line, which is 85 feet, and that is also part of the town drainage easement. There's several dead ash trees currently in that area, 2 of which have fallen and caused some damage, so we're looking to get those removed as soon as possible. And once those are removed, there'll be basically a clear shot between the Phillips Village apartments and the backyard. So we're just hoping to get the fence, the easement encroachment permit approved and then the fence permit approved to put up a privacy fence just to give us some space between the apartments. There's also a few neighbors to the left of the property that have a fence already along that same line. I don't know if they're pre-existing non-conforming or if they got approval as well, but we just want to line up with those and then get some privacy. And then at the beginning of September, the highway department personnel came out to check out the area, and we did get a letter of support from Superintendent Stevens to support this, so that's about it.
Great.
That's it.
Any questions from the board, or?
No, appreciate the detail.
Yeah, well, I make a motion for a license agreement to allow a fence within a drainage easement at 1081 Fawnwood Drive, tax ID number 080.04-1-48.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Your new best friend?
Thank you.
Well, lucky number 13 on the agenda tonight. I don't know how much questions, discussion, comments to do before making this motion. What this motion, I will say, or this resolution that we're proposing, started probably back in June of this year when I met with the executive director of Comida as they were trying to explain to me what might come down the pike with Coca-Cola Fairlife's application for tax exemption status through Comida. We had a town board workshop on July 12th and did a 6-page PowerPoint that Paul Adams helped with, Donna Comar, our assessor, that basically separated some fact from fiction in the town of Webster the last 20 years on Comida tax exemption, payment in lieu of taxes pilot agreements, and also on host community agreements. I think there was a proliferation over the years that the town of Webster always entered into host community agreements and didn't adhere to the tax exemptions of Comida, and we were able to show through historical records of the last 20 years that actually was not the case, especially not the case when you have big developers come into town. On September 19th, Coca-Cola's highest executive working on this project here, the Coke Fairlife plant, and 2 of their attorneys from Barclay Damon, Charlie, and also a tax attorney from Coke, asked for a meeting with Deputy Supervisor Cataldi, myself, Paul Adams is our finance director, and Charlie Genesi is our town attorney. Over the next couple of weeks after that meeting, we did a lot of questions, a lot of due diligence, a lot of history on finding out over the years when you have a Comida deal that goes over the standard 10 years, which Coke was applying for 20, How does it work? How much does the town have a say? Somewhere at the end of September, and I've said since the beginning, the Coca-Cola Fairlife deal for the town of Webster is not, it can't be handled like a 50-house subdivision. It's got to be handled in totality. It has got a lot of tentacles. Basically, Coke came out and said, here's the schedule we're proposing for Comida over the next 20 years, and it aggregated to $2.2 million to the town of Webster. Payments in lieu of taxes for those 20 years during the exemption schedule. To give a point of reference on that, last year, the taxes on the 120 acres of grass, that is the field where they'll build the plant, was slightly under $7,000 in town taxes. So if it remains grass for the next 20 years, the town can, at today's dollars, assume they would get $140,000 over those 20 years. So the $2.2 million that Comida had in their proposal is different than $140,000, but we basically worked out something with Coke outside of Comida that is a separate schedule that is another $663,000 that the town will get payments in lieu of taxes over the next 20 years. So when you take the Comida payments of $2.2 million and the $660,000 from the separate agreement that the town has, and that separate agreement is between the town and Coke. To the best of my knowledge, Coke does not have a separate agreement with the school district, nor do they have it with the county. They are just, the county and the school district will get their Comida pilot payments. The aggregate of those ends up being $2.9 million that the town will receive in payments over the next 20 years. That's my Reader's Digest of this. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Patty, would you do the honor?
I'm just pulling up my agenda. I would move to approve the guarantee payment schedule between Coke Fairlife and the town of Webster and authorize the town supervisor to sign said agreement.
Second.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. One last thing I want to say before we move on to the next one is that the town is very lucky to have Paul Adams as our finance director, Patty Cataldi as our deputy supervisor, and Charlie Genesi as our town attorney, because, yeah, I think that $663,000 didn't just come out of nowhere. That was a very good team effort, and I thank you guys for all that you put into that.
And thank you.
Well, Brayton, I don't know, if you wouldn't mind saying a few words about the next one, and I know I'm excited about it.
So the next agenda item is the appointment of the Communications Director, Bridget Harvey, for the town of Webster. And we had discussed this at one of the budget workshops earlier this summer. And, a decision was made to find a Director of Communications to really help coordinate and enhance all the department's communications with the public. And we went through a process of surveying department heads on their needs and priorities. We used that information in formulating our interview questions. We did 2 rounds of interviews and selections, met several great candidates, but the search committee selected recommended Bridget Harvey. She is a longtime Monroe County resident, currently works for a local non-for-profit, and has a number of years of experience in local government in the communications field. And so we're looking forward to having her start on October 30th and hit the ground running.
Yeah. And before we hand it to any questions, before we do this resolution, similar to what we've done the last 4 years on our department head hirings, we had a vetting committee, an interview committee. Brayton, Patty Cataldi, myself, Chris Bilo, our Parks and Rec Commissioner, and also Rebecca LeClaire, who probably many people remember from local news. She now is has her own communications company. She was very helpful, to say the least, in picking up things about candidates that I don't think the other 4 of us would have.
She volunteered a lot of hours.
She really did. So, any questions or comments by the board before we move forward? Well, I make a motion to appoint Bridget Harvey as Webster's Director of Communications with an effective start date of October 30th, 2023.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Bill, your department.
Yep. The following items are being sent to auction by the Highway Department. 2000 Freightliner tractor trailer, asset tag 4272. 2017 Ford F-350, asset tag 6679. WeatherGuard toolbox 6685, which is attached to the 2017 Ford F-350. Another WeatherGuard toolbox, asset 6686, also attached to that same truck. 2014 Fisher Extreme plow, 6247. 2002 Target road saw, asset tag 2418, and a 1998 Stomper, asset tag 2417. That thing's got to be whipped.
Second.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. Well, that concludes the formal part of the meeting tonight. We'll do our roundtable, and I hope I know how to do this, because I haven't done it in a couple of meetings where we open it up to any calls from home, but Dolly, do you?
Do you have the call-in number you want to?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know.
This is speaker right here. I think that's a speaker.
Yeah, this is our new phone.
And this is the volume.
Yeah, but as far as what, Karen, we need your help.
I don't think it's set up, we can try it next time.
Okay, well, that's mine, all right. Well, roundtable, Pat Stevens.
Yeah. In general, so the big thing, we did start to exercise some of the leaf equipment this week. We take it out early to make sure there aren't any bugs, issues, concerns with it, so that when we hit the ground running next week, everything goes smoothly. But we will start full passes in the town and leaf pickup next week and start to do those things. So that's the newest thing. We're wrapping up other fall efforts, and then things on the new building are moving right along. Paul alluded to earlier. We're getting right into the construction, headed for foundations next month, and that's going great also. So exciting.
Great. Paul?
Yep. Yeah, now that the budget is approved, I'll finalize the tax cap calculation. I'll get that filed probably tomorrow. And I'll get all the information over to Monroe County. Each year, the various components of our budget, the taxing jurisdictions within the budget need to be reported to Monroe County, and they actually goes before the legislature. And they approve a resolution to wrap everything up. So I'll work to get that done soon.
Bill?
Well, since Pat already talked about the highway, Parks and Rec will be having a ribbon cutting on the 24th for Sandbar Park. At 1:30, I think it is.
I think it's at 1.
1.
1 o'clock, I'm sorry. I had to get my calendar up.
Yeah.
1 o'clock.
Patty?
Next Saturday is a big day in town. There's not a workshop next week, so we won't have an opportunity to announce. But it is the Trick or Treat Trail in the village from, I believe, 11 until 3 perhaps. It's a fun day for families. And next Saturday, also from 10 until 2, out front here of the building that we're in, there's going to be a drug drop-off, if you will, where people can bring their unused and expired medications and drop those off, and they will be properly disposed of, and that will be next Saturday, the 28th, from 10 until 2. And the town is doing that in partnership with WEN, the Webster Health and Education Network.
Great. Charlie?
Well, there's plenty to keep an attorney busy in the town of Webster. And, that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
We're keeping things under as much control as we can.
Very good.
Jenny?
Okay, there's a couple of things. There's a book sales for the Webster Public Library tomorrow, and I believe throughout this weekend, I could be volunteer from 9 to 1:30. And the Webster Museum, they have special events too, so please come out and support your community, and thanks to everyone, and have a good night.
John Kale.
So I have a couple things related to one state and local EMS, and the other is local EMS. So I'm going to start with the local EMS. I'd like to give recognition to not only EMS, but our local fire department, and I think the police department was probably there too, regarding a house fire. And so I'm going to read what I was given from, I get weekly updates on, it's called Sunday Thoughts. And this is a section that is provided by Chief Matt Lloyd, local EMS WEMS, and he runs the day-to-day operation over there. So I'm just going to read his words, and he says, I would like to recognize the crews who responded to a house fire earlier this week. Paramedic Andy Van Dorn, EMS Jay Shiro, Carly Mayers, who assisted saving the family's dog. The residents got out, but they noticed the dog didn't come out with the family. And we all know, all of us that have pets, your dog is a member of your family. So one of the firemen, and I believe one of the EMS guys or gals, actually entered the house, found the dog, brought the dog out, and the dog was very lethargic, wasn't walking, and they were able to deploy oxygen therapy, and they brought the dog around, and the dog's doing tremendously well. So, shout out to the firemen and our local EMS for saving the family's dog. Great job. So yesterday, or last evening, I was at a meeting, and there's a thing called direct pay bill. Now, this direct pay bill, and I'll explain in a minute exactly what it is, it passed the Assembly and the State Senate overwhelmingly. And this is what direct pay is. So if you have private insurance and an EMS comes to your house, takes you to the hospital, the bill gets sent to the insurance company. The insurance company, in turn, sends that check back to you, which in turn should be sent to the EMS company. So what has happened historically, and especially at times when it's high inflation and around Christmas time, that money never goes back to the EMS agencies. For example, last year alone, in 2022, I believe it was, Webster EMS lost $170,000 in revenue because that money never came. So what this bill that passed the House and the Senate overwhelmingly says is the insurance companies are to send those checks directly to the EMS agencies. So it was announced at the meeting that I was at last night that the governor had signed that bill. And I was extremely ecstatic because I've been tracking this for quite some time, because that's a lot of revenue for a local EMS agency. And this is a statewide bill, obviously. And we know that EMS companies across this state and across this country are struggling immensely financially. And this would have been a great help to them. So I talked with our assemblyman, Brian Manitello, to confirm that, in fact, that had happened. This is when I talked to Brian today, I left a message. He called me back. He was having a family emergency. He said, "Can I call you Monday?" And I'm like, "Sure." I knew he told me what the emergency was. It was pretty bad. And this is how dedicated this assemblyman is. He called his staff in Albany and asked them to follow up on it. And he literally called me back like an hour later. He said, "John, it's not on the governor's desk, and she has not signed it." So I was very disappointed to hear that news, but hopefully there's a heavy lobby by the insurance companies not to have her sign that bill, which is, in my opinion, why it's sitting in the Senate. But we've got a lot of directors of EMS across the state and a lot of assemblymen and senators that are really pushing hard to get this back on her desk for her to sign it. So that's the news I had about that. And that's it.
That's disappointing.
It's very
And I'm
disappointing.
sorry, because I was
Yeah.
just as excited hearing that,
Yeah.
last night, but.
But I will say this, just to add on to that is I want to recognize, Ahmed Mustafa, and I know, there's been some negative things on Facebook about him, but in my opinion, I've known Ahmed since I was mayor. He introduced himself to me, introduced me to local EMS, the services they provide, and how fortunate we are to have them. And I don't know of a gentleman related to EMS who has done more for EMS, not just countywide and locally, but statewide. And I think, he's a true asset, especially when he goes downstate to lobby for the benefit of, EMS throughout our county.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Well, Dolly, you're the last one.
I just have a quick reminder to the taxpayers using the installment method, that installments 2 and 3 are to be sent to the county and not the town clerk's office.
Thank you, Dolly. Well, guess what? That concludes tonight's meeting. It is adjourned.